Hey everybody, I'm Rebecca Gunter, and you're watching Business in the Raw, where the world is your oyster. This is episode 9, Peer-to-Peer Support. Oh boy, is this a special episode. Janine and I welcome Jodi Krangle, official voiceover artist of 100 TV, and maybe my new favorite person. Jodi has graciously agreed to join us for episode 9, Peer-to-Peer Support, where she's going to help us figure out exactly what it takes to build a voiceover business in today's modern landscape. Welcome, Jodi Krangle. We are pleased as punch to welcome Jodi Krangle to Business in the Raw. Jodi's bringing her best business brain and helping us unpack all of the things it's going to take to make a successful voiceover business for Janine. We're so excited to have this peer-to-peer support. All right, well, welcome, Jodi, to your Business in the Raw TV premiere, darling. Anybody who's watched any 100 TV at all has heard your voice all over the airways, and we are so excited. I honestly thought we were going to be the first 100 TV crossover, but it seems like Ross and Coach Jenny got to be first in that arena.
Oh, well.
But the crossover is awesome to me because of the collaboration and the general good vibe that I think is pretty unique to 100 TV. So thank you for joining us today.
So happy to be here.
Yay! This episode is really to serve as peer-to-peer support for Janine. Her journey has looked like a lot of deep discovery, and then she's had some time to sit down with our resident business coach, Jill Mokes, who helped her then build a business model around the positioning. So we've kind of been carving out a brand and validating that business model, and that process took the positioning to a whole nother level, which was really, really exciting. And we just wrapped up some core values work. So your timing is absolutely perfect to come in to slide into our StreamYard, as they say, and help just be an awesome peer-to-peer support person, in which we're hoping that we can just ask you lots of questions and kind of get a sense for where the industry is like today and what an entrepreneur would expect to just kind of like walk into as they hang out their shingle for the first time.
Sure, yeah. I will say voiceovers today are way different than when I started in 2007.
Tell us more about that.
Much different, yeah.
Tell us more about that.
Well, I would just say that when I started, there was no social media, right? So we were doing it all on message boards. That was how we were socializing online. So I was on a message board called that was from a woman named Julie Williams, and her tagline then was voiceover chocolate. So I don't think it is anymore, but she had a message board that was really popular among voiceover talent, and I just searched it out on the internet when I was first starting and went on there and talked with the people there, and some of those people I still am in contact with today. It's amazing. But social media, of course, took over everything. And directories, so pay-to-play directories, were kind of where I started. Unfortunately, nowadays it's harder to get started that way. Yeah, because originally when I was on one of them, they allowed you to contact the client directly. And that client then, once you got them through the directory, became your client. And as that progressed, they decided that they wanted to have an escrow system, and they wanted people to go through their site, and you couldn't actually, like, you were legally bound by their contract to not be able to contact the end client outside of their platform. And that just, the minute that happened, I left, because that was not why I was there, and it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted these clients to be mine. I didn't want to depend on the directory. So there is still one that allows you to make those clients your own that's really large, and that would be Voice 123. The problem with Voice 123 right now is that you kind of have to be at their $800 plus membership level to really get enough to sustain you. And it's just got more expensive as things progress. And you'll see a lot of really low budget crap on directories like that.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, I'm not there either anymore.
And so, Jodi, you mentioned several things. First of all, thank you for being here,
Mm.
because your expertise and history in this space is like none other. And seriously, I did some work and did my demos. Like, I don't know, if you know Bill DeWeese?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
Hmm.
so when I first got into the business, it was like maybe 10 years after you. So it was
No.
like 2017-ish, I think.
Hmm.
And I developed some demos with him and, put those out there. But voices.com and voices123 were the two pay to play sites that I use more often. And I think the Voices123 was the one I sort of stuck with for a bit.
Yeah. I
Uh,
had
yeah.
left voices.com probably in, I think, 2015, maybe a little earlier than that. I'm not sure
Uh,
exactly, but I think it was around that time. Yeah. That was when
okay.
they stopped allowing you to put your contact information in
Yep.
the email that you sent to the clients.
That's right.
Yeah. And I just went, okay, well, this
Yeah.
is no longer worth your $500 a year. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Exactly. And that's the thing, because the cost, as you say now, because I'm just now moving back into the space and
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to sell myself, where do I go, and do I find myself back at like a Voices123, but at 800 something plus a pop, every year annually
Yeah.
it's just a bit much. And so one of the questions that I have for you is, are you at a point now, look, you've been in the business for, over what, 15,
Over 15. Yeah.
right? Over 15 years.
Yeah.
So is it repeat customers at this point, and if so, wow, bravo, how you got there? And then, do you ever pursue, sort of, I say cold calling? Do you need to do that now? And what would you recommend for someone like me?
Good questions.
Mm.
Um, I would say that right now the majority of my work is from repeat clients because they get used to what I offer them. I have a very specific niche. I do anything that's less than 5 minutes of finished audio. So I don't do the long form if I can help it. Every once in a while, I have a client who comes to me and needs something special, and I will do that for them. But in general, my narration, my audio is 5 minutes of finished audio or less. And what that does for my business is it allows me to not have any fires. So, if there are no fires because I can get done whatever they need done if it's a 5 minute thing or less,
That's
I can
right.
do it pretty easily. So, yeah, it doesn't weigh on my shoulders. It
Yeah.
doesn't take me a week to make something right if
Oh,
I, God forbid, made a mistake
yes.
somewhere. It's a really easy fix and I can get everything done really quickly. And it also means that I have a lot of different business in a day. So
Yeah.
the day isn't boring, and I hate to be bored.
I know. Well, let me tell you, when I went to your website, and of course, I found myself, I was like, okay, Janine, you don't have to listen to all of them. First of all, your voice is just so dynamic, and the highs and the lows of the
Oh, thank
various
you.
product, you're just so phenomenal. So, and I'll do that every time I speak. I just want you to know that. But, which is applaud you. But, but truly, and I got that. I saw that many of them were short form, or
Hmm.
whatever the proper name is. And I thought, man, does she pursue? So that was a question. Do you pursue only that work? And that answer is yes. And
Yes.
you're right, because you find yourself, and especially where I am in the business, I'm having to go back and sort of, redo this, redo that. And before you know it, it's taken like hours just to complete a very short, script,
Hmm.
to complete a, script. So I love that. But how likely do you find more clients are seeking the shorter, or like you said, you only accept the shorter work? I mean,
Yeah.
what do you call it? Scripts, or yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I go after. That's what I make sure that I let people know. Normally, I get a lot of walk-in business from my website. So SEO on your website is going to be really, really important. I would highly recommend that you focus on that.
Okay.
So, that definitely has helped because people walking in the door, I kind of already have the job before they've even emailed me,
Yeah.
right? That makes it
Yes.
way more easy.
That's right.
Yeah. So that was definitely a big factor. And yeah, I turn down work that is going to be 20 hours or whatever. Like I don't do e-learning anymore
You
generally.
don't.
I really don't. No. And I actually these days it's a great way to get started, but I suspect that the lower paying people who are doing e-learning are going to start using AI and not a real voice. So almost I would suggest that voiceovers starting these days focus on places where a human voice, where a human connection is really needed. And I'm not necessarily sure that all e learning needs that human connection.
Got
Some
it.
of it does, some of it definitely does. But a lot of it is going to be skimmed off the bottom by AI.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's where you're thinking of starting, and I agree for a lot of people that's the easiest place to start.
Hmm.
I wouldn't settle there.
Okay.
It's I'd be careful because it's coming.
It is. It is. It cometh, and every time. And Rebecca and I, and Rebecca, jump in here anytime.
Hmm.
Rebecca and I have talked about using AI in certain areas of the work that we're doing, even
Sure.
building website and so forth. But Rebecca, you were advising me, about where the direction of AI and how, yeah, it can begin to take over in spaces that we used to own.
Yeah.
Using a live voice.
We were talking about AI for your nonprofit work and how much that could serve to help you with, like, you have an event and there's all this copy that has to go around having an event, or just keeping a blog kind of active and going. I do think that from a copy perspective, that there's a lot of room for AI to be extremely powerful and
Mm-hmm.
successful. And I love this concept, Jodi, that you brought up, which is where human voice needs a connect, where we need a connection. How do you determine? Look at me pointing with my Sharpie. How do you determine what kind of project needs a human connection? Like for you, what is that? What is that litmus test?
Anything branding related. That's my litmus
Mm-hmm.
test. That and anything that's heavily actor required. Like if you really need acting to do something, I would say that you need that human to actually do the acting.
Mm.
And if it's a branding matter, I would say that if a brand uses AI and they're not a tech company and they're not, it reflects poorly on them. It really
Mm.
does from a branding perspective because
From
they're
the
not being
voice or
real.
from everything?
Well, okay, not necessarily from everything, but I would say anything that is forward facing towards your audience and your clients.
Mm.
So so that really needs a human element because otherwise you're not being authentic. And if you're not being authentic now, that is a death knell.
Ooh, wow.
Wait, I mean, we've really been talking about the importance right now, more than ever, of building a
Mhm.
brand that is so
Authentic.
authentic to
Mhm.
yourself. That's why we've done positioning. We just wrapped up core values. You can't fake that.
Wow, you
No,
can't.
you really can't.
As
And you don't want
as
an AI voice representing you in that case either.
Wow, wow. What do you say to a company that, and not that is choosing AI in that branding space? And I know it's not us to be, sort of as
Mhm.
Rebecca and I were talking about earlier, mothering, you shouldn't do that. But do you think that organizations, companies are getting that they understand that, or
It's a tough question.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that part of the problem here is that some organizations don't understand how powerful their sound really is.
Mm.
And that's what I fight with my own podcast all the time. That's why I even have this podcast. So
Mhm.
I talk about how important sound is. And sound is important for a lot of things, but making a human connection and being authentic in your branding is number one. So if these companies don't understand that, well, okay, they can go their own way and do what they're doing them to make a genuine connection with the people that are experiencing what they're trying to offer.
Mhm. That is actually profound, and so I have a question about your podcast.
Hmm.
What is your podcast, the subject of your podcast? Because, of course, I'm gonna be following you everywhere. And, yeah, so what is the subject now, and how did you get there? How did you
Well,
make that segue?
as a voice actor, and you probably get this as well, often what I contribute to a project is kind of the bow on the present or the icing on the cake at the end of
Yeah.
everything. Often that's when we're called.
Mhm.
But in a lot of cases, it's not actually thought of before we're called. They don't give it any thought. They don't even give the music any thought. It's like,
That's
oh,
right.
let's go to a license-free music directory and just go through and we'll see what fits, you know?
Right.
If you're going to make a really, really good product, something that people are going to connect with, something that's going to influence people to want to experience what your company has to offer,
Yes.
then you need to make that connection. And I've told a lot of people this. If you turn off the sound on a movie, you're
Yeah.
going to understand what the movie is about, sure, but you're not going to care.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
That
this is,
yeah.
yeah, this is what I talk about. So I talk about how sound is the emotional context. And definitely the music does that, the voice does that, the sound effects do that. Everything creates the emotional context with which you're asking your audience to experience your offering. So if you're not talking about your sound, if you're not paying any attention to it, you are leaving money on the table. Just
Yes.
that's what's happening.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Because you're not paying attention, and obviously because you're not giving your audience an opportunity to
No one's going
pay
to
attention,
care.
really. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting that you still chose that space, the voice space, if you
Hmm.
will, to educate your audience. And it sounds like you're also educating client.
Actually, yeah, I focus on the clients. This actually isn't a voiceover podcast.
Ah,
It's called audio branding. And so what I talk about is the way that sound influences both our buying decisions and our daily lives. So I'm not just talking about advertising and marketing, although that is a big part of it. I'm also talking about sound in healthcare, sound in movies,
oh,
sound in education, sound in any aspect that you care to think about. I've talked about ASMR and binaural beats
oh,
and all
wow.
sorts of really interesting things. And, you know, how to get into the authentic you through the sound
Yeah.
of your voice and that deep well of who you are that comes out in your voice when you speak. So there's a whole bunch of different aspects of this, and I just love exploring it all.
I'm really impressed. And so one of my next questions is what your background prior to, sort of diving deep into voiceovers, was it like speech therapy, speech pathology, or anything like that? Or
It was totally the opposite. I was in SEO and internet marketing before
you
I got into it.
were.
Yes, I
Ah.
was. Yeah. So
Ah.
I'm a computer geek. I mean, I'm kind of left and right brained. This is
Yes,
kind
you
of
are.
weird. So I'm a singer. I've been a singer since I was 6, since I could
Yeah.
basically talk.
Y
And I had a songwriting website online called The Muse's Muse, which was all about songwriting. It was for business, it was
I
for
think I know
creative.
that.
I had article writers and columnists. I had a spotlight for musicians. I had a radio show in 2002 for a little bit.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and a newsletter that came out every month for 18 years nonstop.
I honestly, I think I've heard it. I could have, subscribed to it.
You may well have.
Yeah.
It's been defunct since about 2016. That
No.
was when I kind of decided voiceovers was really where I was at, and I was
Okay.
facilitating songwriters more than I was songwriting myself at that
Got
point.
it. Yes.
So it was
Okay.
like, okay, let's just put this to the side a little. And I was already well into the voiceover stuff by then, so it was not a hard decision. But yeah, it was a lot of fun for a long time, but I learned a ton doing that site because
Mhm.
I started the site in 1995.
Okay. That's
So,
amazing.
yeah.
So where would you, Rebecca knows, that, I've been thinking about, well, let me take advantage of this time with you. So
Sure.
sometimes I have to go, okay, what are we doing here? So what would you suggest for someone like me, literally hitting the restart button in a voiceover business, right? Um, and knowing that we've already had that conversation around voices 1, 2, 3, the pay for play sites. So I don't mean just to focus on them. What would you recommend for me in terms of starting to seek clients?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big question. And these days,
Yeah.
it's not as easy as it used to be.
Okay.
I will say that first of all, focusing on SEO on your website will help a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But also, demos help a lot as well. If you're really happy with your demos, that's fantastic. We're always improving. So, and you don't have to improve the whole thing. Like you can improve one spot at a time.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be the whole thing. So it doesn't have to cost a whole hell of a lot every time you do it, is what I'm
Right.
saying. Because it's pricey these days.
It is.
Definitely. Yeah. I would suggest working with a couple of coaches that are really, really good with the real person read.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-commercial kind of, being real for commercials kind of read. And I would actually suggest a woman named Mary Lynn Wisner, pardon me.
Mary Lynn.
Mary Lynn Wisner. So she has something in LA. She does this on a regular basis. I can find the URL for you. But she is absolutely fantastic, and she's a casting director, so she knows how this all goes. So she has something called Voices Voice Casting, and she does regular coaching sessions, and she also has a Meet the Pros kind of night.
Oh, wow.
It might be something you want to wait a bit for, because she does want people who have been in the business a little bit longer. But coaching with her is definitely worth your while, because that real person read is what people are asking for right now. That's what people need. So it's all about that authenticity, right?
And you know what? I thank you so much, because I was working with a coach out of New York, and I have to say I was a little disappointed that I felt as though I wasn't giving all that. And I wish, if I could think of his name, you probably know of him. He's been at this for a very long time, and he's all into product reads, right? And I don't think, and I'm not just trying to sort of knock myself out of the ball game, but I have a different, sound and also desire, for the types of reading. You hit it, the real person sort of read. And some people can do that across the board. They can shift like you.
I had to learn.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
But it sort of was hard. And we spent about 10 weeks together. And at the end of the day, to be honest, we both realized you need more coaching in a space than you need to figure out what it is that you really want to do, the space that I want to operate in. And I know a lot of voiceover artists or talent, they will say, hey, do you really need a niche or not? And for me, I don't know if it's even about niche. It's just getting a good coach in a space that I think I want to focus on for right now, and learn that well. I don't know. What do you say to that? And what do you say about niches?
I think niches are fantastic if you can have them. And if you don't, I mean, what will happen is that the market will tell you where you fit. Really. So get your coaching, get your demos, be happy with your website, and then be in the space. There's a whole bunch of people on Facebook and Facebook groups, all sorts of things on there. And I know there's LinkedIn groups as well, so you can be a part of that. And once you're a part of that, you sort of get a feel for the community, and the community can really help you out. There's a lot of people who will have suggestions for you, not just me. and there's all sorts of things that you can do to forward where you're going, to be clearer on where you feel that you fit. But just to be clear on this as well, you may feel you fit somewhere, and then the market is going to tell you, well, we really like you for this.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're getting paid for it,
love it.
Why worry?
Exactly, because you're getting paid. And this is a great somewhat segue. This is just dynamic in so many ways. So Rebecca and I have gone through the core values sort of piece. Is there work that you've just either decided that no, not touching that, or have you over time just been able to, now that you've built that capacity or sort of focus in a particular sort of the 5-minute 5 to 6 minute sort of reads and things like that, where that more dictates the work. What dictates the work that you've decided to pursue?
Well, I will be quite honest and authentic here and tell you that I have a pain in the ass-o-meter.
Okay.
So my pain in the assometer means that's why I decided to do nothing longer than 5 minutes. I
Love it.
don't do audiobooks. That is not on
I was
my,
going to ask you.
nope,
Okay.
not anything I want to ever do.
Oh, this is so
I
funny.
admire people who do it. It is a slog, and it is definitely something that, if depending on the book, can be very actor heavy. And I
Mhm.
totally admire anyone who can do that on a
Yeah.
regular basis. That's not for me.
Okay.
So that is not something I do. There's another reason why I don't typically do promo, actually. And I don't typically do it because it can give you golden handcuffs. Which
Ooh.
means by that they will need you at a certain time every day, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter where you are, and you can't be more than 5 minutes away from your studio, or you have a studio in your car. Like, I know people who have studios in their car
Oh,
for
I've heard
precisely
that.
that reason.
Yes, exactly. So they can pull off, do their, block themselves off,
Yep,
have their
yep.
mic. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I want a good work-life balance for me. Like, I need to know that I have a freedom of time. And so, yeah, I will do directed sessions. I have no problem doing that with
Mhm.
clients. And that happens on a regular basis. And I plan my week around it. That is totally fine.
Right.
But when it comes right down to being needed on a regular basis for something that is almost daily or weekly or something like that, as much as it can be really lucrative, it ties you down. And so I,
Thank you.
I'm very careful about the type of work that I take right now, just because I want that freedom. And sometimes I will do that for a client. If it's super easy and it takes 5 minutes and they
Yeah.
call me once a week or twice a week, I'm there. I can do
Yeah.
that. No problem. But I'm going to take a vacation.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And don't call me, right? I mean, you won't reach me.
Well,
Yeah.
I do want a vacation. I want to
Yeah.
live my life. I am a person. I am a
Thank
human
you.
being with
Yeah.
needs.
Wow. Wow. That you don't, if you only knew that helps me begin to sort of design the path that I want to take,
Mhm.
starting with coaching, looking at the SEO for the website, all those things that you've mentioned, very important. Um, what I don't want to, and Rebecca, if there's anything that that either I'm missing, I want to make the best use of this time. Your technical support as well. Do you do all your editing? But I'd like to ask Rebecca, please, to step in, because you've been hearing this. It's like, Janine's not asking.
No, this is your session, Mama.
I know, but
I mean, this is your hand. You've got your questions, and there's industry specific stuff that I don't like. I'd never heard of real read.
yeah,
The real person read. I'd never heard of that before, so I'm taking lots of notes.
yeah,
I think essentially like satisfying all of these things, questions that are keeping you up at night
yeah.
is
Okay.
so key. And I love that you asked, what would you advise someone to get started?
Mm-hmm.
And Jodi gave you such concrete answers.
Yes.
Make sure you have a very SEO happy website.
Yeah.
Make sure your demos are great and get yourself a good coach.
Get a good
So,
coach.
If you
I thought,
have the ability to do a blog or something like that, or if you're already doing it, put that on your website.
Uh-huh.
Because that increases the amount of pages on your website and the amount of, let's say, SEO juice.
I'm
Because
following you.
it's regular updates. So regular content will make your website, it'll be a little more found in the search
Wow.
engines.
I
Yeah.
got it. You got it.
and then what about other platforms, Jodi? While I'm in here, quick, like a bunny.
Mm.
Like you have a podcast.
Mhm.
Janine and I have been talking about whether or not a podcast makes sense to her, whether or not a show on 100 TV makes sense,
Mm.
whether something like that she can actually showcase her voice in real time.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your podcast. I know you're also on Clubhouse. So,
Yes, I am. Yeah. So
Wow.
my podcast ties everything together. So the podcast is where I get the majority of the content, and then I make show notes from the podcast to put on my blog on my website. So on my website, the blog is basically the show notes of my podcast with the player at the top. And then I have a YouTube channel that also has the video portions of the podcast. And so I have that as well, where some of the notes are there. And then once a week, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, I have a Clubhouse discussion that happens in a house that I have called The Power of Sound. So
Oh,
we talk about all sorts of things having to do with sound. Mostly it's about voiceovers, podcasting, music, and whatever else tickles our fancy through the months, right?
oh my God.
Yeah. So, and it works really well because what happens, I find, with podcasts is that it's a very passive medium. So it'll
Hmm.
be great for getting you content. That's fantastic. But you don't always assume that people are going to listen
Yeah, that's right.
or that they're going to respond to
Mhm.
anything you ask them to do when they're listening.
Very interesting.
Because they're listening while they're doing a whole bunch of other things,
Exactly. Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
And it's very rare when they'll actually sit down and do something that you ask them to do in the
Right.
podcast. So what I do with the Clubhouse is I open that up for people who are super fans to actually have communication with me. So if they want to participate, if they want to actually ask me questions, or they want to participate in something we're talking about or may have talked about in the podcast, they can contact me through Clubhouse and we can have a one-on-one discussion, or we can have a discussion with a bunch of other people in a room that I've put together. And, all of that happens on a regular basis. There's also on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you may want to check this out.
Yeah.
In the same house, the house is called The Power of Sound. We have a discussion called Voices in Podcasting. So, what that is it's three of us, myself, another coach. Her name is Anne Ganguza, and she coaches in e-learning and the corporate narration areas.
Yes.
So again, someone else to check out if you want coaching in those areas. And Cheryl Halling. And Cheryl also has a podcast of her own called 19 Stories. And Anne's podcast is called VO Boss. So,
Thank you.
yeah, totally recommend that you check them both out. But all three of us have a panel discussion every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern where we just talk about voiceovers and podcasting, because we all have podcasts and we're voice
Yes.
actors, and where they meet in the middle and what's going on in each space. It just depends on what the people in the audience ask us. So we have regular discussions, and it's like a big party. We have a lot of
I
fun.
love it. And I can find it. Obviously, I probably have spelled their last names incorrectly, but if I go to the Power of Sound podcast, I probably can get more information, and then from there find them on their respective
It's
spaces.
the Power of Sound house.
House.
In Clubhouse. Yeah. So if you go to the Power of Sound club in house in Clubhouse, it used to be a club. Now it's a house.
I love it.
Okay. So yeah, check that out. And then the administrators, if you look at the administrators, so if you look at the people who are members, you'll see the administrators, I think, are listed at the top. Both Cheryl and Anne should be there.
Okay.
Jodi, if I can just jump in here and ask you to tell the children at home what Clubhouse is.
Oh, yeah.
It really only popped on the scene from a marketing perspective. It was super, super hot. And then now I'm like, wow, people are still on Clubhouse. So tell us.
They are.
But yeah, tell us about your experience on Clubhouse, what it is, your experience there, and why it's really important to your work that you chose this as a platform.
Well, Clubhouse is a social audio network. So it's not video, it's only audio. And it's basically a way for people to have group discussions in a social way. And it's a really nice platform to do that. So I go on there once or twice a week and have regular discussions for an hour. I've been there since January 2020. And January? Yeah, I think it's January 2020. Yeah, it's been a while. I didn't realize how long it's been. Wow. But yeah, I go on there and I really just talk with people. So when this first happened, when Clubhouse was first on the scene, people used to have rooms that would last forever. Like they just never ended because people were so thrilled with the medium. They were like, oh, this is so cool. We can have a discussion about anything for hours.
And these are my people.
Yeah, exactly. But it got kind of ridiculous. So people started, I think, just kind of getting bored because rooms were lasting forever. It was like you didn't want to leave or be rude, It was like, and yeah. So I think for people who didn't have a purpose, then it wasn't really the best place for them to be. It was a good place to listen to some conversations, and you could be passive if you wanted to, kind of like listening to a talk radio show.
Yes.
And yeah, it works great for that kind of thing. But those who stuck with it are using it for very specific purposes. And all of my rooms that happen on Wednesdays and Thursdays are for 1 hour only. So it lasts an hour and then it's done, and you can listen on the replay if you want. There is always a replay. And yeah, it's very specific. And I use it specifically as an offshoot of my podcast because I know that people are just listening, don't want to do anything. But if they want to do something, then they can drop by the clubhouse. And I mention I have a newsletter that I also send out once a week to let people know about the new podcast, but also about the new clubhouses and what's going on in there. So in both, I'm reaching, I mean, it's a small amount of people right now. It's like maybe 200 people. It's not a whole lot.
Well, but these are the dedicated folks. They know
Yeah.
what they're getting, right? And and when they talk to others, they'll be speaking specifically about what this is about,
Yeah,
so you're
yeah.
going to continue to bring in those, those same type of like people,
Yes, yeah. And I
Jodi-
do recommend, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Not at all. I was just going to ask if you ever repurpose any of the replays from Clubhouse
I definitely
towards your
have.
podcast, or the other way around.
I definitely have repurposed the recordings from Clubhouse. And actually, if you look at some of the previous podcasts, you'll see they're called In the Clubhouse, and then whatever the title is.
Wow.
So yeah, you can definitely hear them and see what happens. And I'm not editing those at all, really. I mean, I'm just kind of putting them out there, and people are experiencing what the rooms are like.
Very interesting. You're giving me a lot to think about as well. So first of all, thank you for sharing
No
the
problem.
various spaces that you're on, the various platforms rather, that you're on, and how do you utilize them. I think that's beneficial for me, and I'm sure anybody who's watching. Um, um, i- i- um, because I'm still somewhat conflicted, I think, in trying to figure out what area is podcasting perfect for me. What will it work? And I know some people say, just dive in, but the more I hear from other people, like you, I don't know, the specificity, and just tying it to your own voice. And this is what Rebecca and I have talked about. No
Mhm.
matter what I say, yes, I'm using my voice. So how to build on that. So I don't think I have a question here, but just sort of reiterating what I heard. And and that's impactful. Yeah,
I'm glad.
it gives me a lot to think about.
Mhm.
Rebecca, I hear you.
What would you say to people, Jodi, who feel like they might be like you've got this really solid platform, kind of trifecta, or what was the word you used earlier, Janine? The German word that means three?
Troika.
Troika.
Yeah.
Yes, I love
this terrific troika.
that.
Because you've got your YouTube channel, you have your Clubhouse, you've got your blog, you've got your podcast, and then you also participate in panel discussions. And all of them seem to be interconnected. You've weaved your golden threads of your own brand through them, and they all tend to buttress each other and grow in tandem. What would you say to somebody who was like, I just had a panic attack listening to the fact that you are on producing a podcast, you're on a panel, you've got to, make sure that you have all this stuff ready to repurpose, your show notes are there or whatever.
Mhm.
Is it possible to have, in your opinion, is it possible to have a successful voiceover business without all of that visibility and coordination?
I think it is. I think it's harder. I think all of us kind of need a media empire of our own before we really are going to get noticed. But I mean, there are a lot of voice actors who do just fine being totally in the background and not being out front at all, barely participating in social media at all. There are lots of people who have very thriving businesses without that. I have a lot of help. So I will say that I outsource to a lot of different people to make all of this happen. And I think that a lot of people discount outsourcing and they don't pay attention to it and think that they have to wait until they're making 100,000 a year or something to be able
You can't
to
make 100,000 a year without that team.
Well, yeah, here's the thing though. I think you can afford it a lot sooner because it depends on what you're going to outsource. So I have a producer for the podcast, who's a colleague of mine who I absolutely adore. His name is Umberto Franco. He's also a voice talent and he's in Portugal. So he's fantastic. He's amazing. I love him to death. And he has made this podcast possible. And we've taken it from just audio to video now. So he's doing a lot more work and he's making it seem simple, which, I know it's not simple. So good on him. I have someone who does my show notes. I have someone who does my social media. I look it over all of it and I make sure that it all sounds like me and has my character to it. And I respond to everything on social media. So it's not just sitting out there and, wasting space. But having to come up with all of that on my own would take a lot more out of my day than I really have time for. So being able to use that. And I understand that ChatGPT can help with a lot of these things. AI can help with a lot of these kinds of things. I will say, though, that you still need to go over it because there's a couple of things with ChatGPT. And one of them is it's great for starting things. It's not great for ending them. So the reason that I say that is because it's going to push out some generic something or other that sounds nothing like you and is boring as hell. Because it just needs to make it sound like English, right? It doesn't need to. And also, it's not necessarily accurate because it's getting everything from all over the web and it doesn't care. It's not fact checking. Right. It doesn't know, right? So you got to be careful what you use it for. It can definitely be really great for starting up an outline of something, giving you ideas of where to take a particular podcast or a blog. It's great for drumming up ideas. It can even come up with really good titles, maybe for SEO and that kind of stuff. Maybe you can use it for that as well. Even for really quick Twitter tweets, like stuff like that, right? Hashtags, maybe, particular keywords and things like that. It might be able to come up with that really easily, but there are things that really need the human touch. Yep. And that you don't want to just let it go and then put that out there because that's not going to help you.
I appreciate sort of your not necessarily just pushback, but defining when is perhaps best to use like a GPT. I found even using something as simple as Grammarly. I don't know if anybody uses that. Yeah. There's sometimes I use that and it will change a sentence that's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But you're right. You both are right. You take it for what it's worth. Sometimes it's a great starting point, but in some spaces, it can do a lot of the work for you, but you still have to pay attention. That's what I hear you all saying. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. You still have to pay attention.
Yes,
definitely. Which is why I actually pay people to do these things. I would prefer the human touch from the start. And the fellow doing my show notes, I've known him for a long number of years and he knows me very well. Yes. So he knows my voice. He knows my voice,
yes.
Right? The way that I speak, the way that I talk, the way that I write. So he can sound very much like me. And I don't think anyone's going to know much of a difference.
No, because you know each other. He knows you.
Yes.
Human.
Yeah. But once you start outsourcing these things, then you have more time to do what you are passionate about. So whether it's with ChatGPT and you keeping an eye on it or outsourcing to a human being, which I always advocate for, exactly. It's important. I really do think that human touch is important. But, whether it's that or the other, I do think that it's a good idea to not be overwhelmed and to farm out the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Or that you just don't have time to do because that just makes your job easier. This is not about you being everywhere just because. It's you being everywhere so that you get more of the work that you love to do.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Now that's a cut and print soundbite.
It totally is. Exactly.
I don't drop mics here.
I love that. Nor do I clap in the mic.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. No mics dropped here.
I know we're getting close to 12 o'clock, and I have a question to you about who does like your editing. But before I do that, before anybody drops into the chat here, a troika, a Russian vehicle pulled by a team of 3 horses abreast. And then another version is, or definition is, a group of 3 people working together, especially in an administrative or managerial capacity. And that's how we use the term troika.
I love
So,
it. Yeah.
so question for you. So I am standalone as you are in some ways, but who does your editing when you're on? When you're reading, how does that work? How does the exchange work? You're at Mike. Do you have you said you have a producer who's in?
Oh, he's for the podcast.
Oh, the
And I
podcast.
actually have used him for editing in the past. So yes, he does do that kind of work. But I have a separate editor who I call on when I really don't have time to do something.
Okay.
So, or when I'm on the road and I just don't want to be editing and I don't know how to make it sound good. Yeah.
Yes.
So I do have someone that I use in that aspect, and his name is Brandon Perry. He has a business called Sound Nectar, and he is really, really talented. He doesn't tend to do long form stuff. I don't think that's really where he shines. He can do it, I think, but more likely he's more likely to do stuff at like 10 minutes or less.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, it really depends on what you're sending him. But you can always reach out to him and ask him what his rates are. But for the majority of stuff, I do still edit myself. So,
You do. See, I don't have
yeah.
that. I tried to do the Adobe. I tried to do what's the one that come with the Mac?
Twisted Wave
Yeah, no,
or Guitar Band.
Guitar Band. So I
Okay,
tried
yeah.
a guitar.
Garage band.
Yeah, Garage.
Garage
Yeah,
Band. Sorry, Guitar Band.
yeah,
I'm not a Mac person. I'm a PC person.
Oh, you're so funny. But
Yeah.
you get it. But the point
Yeah.
is, and I try, and I just, so I haven't honed that skill, but it sounds like it's also something that I really need to
You
get a
need to
grasp of.
know. Yeah, you do need to know. I recommend Adobe Audition just because it's constantly being updated. It has all the latest stuff. You can do plugins with it. It's fairly easy to use once you get the hang of it. And there are people who do courses on this kind of stuff. I know that George Whittam, if you look him up, it's spelled Whittam.
Oh, thank you.
He does regular courses on different types of audio DAWs, recording.
DAW. Yeah.
So I would really recommend that you talk with someone like that. Or there's another fellow named Roy Yokelson, and it is Yokelson, I believe.
I'll find him.
Yeah, we call him Uncle Roy.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole community knows him as Uncle Roy. Yes.
Okay.
But he also does sessions. He does a 2-hour session with you where he will sit you down and he'll do plugins for you and keyboard shortcuts, and depending on what DAW you're using, he'll go through all that with you. And it just makes it way easier when you have keyboard shortcuts and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. It can get complicated, but also once you have the basics, then you at least know what you're handing off to someone else.
That's the thing. Exactly. Because bravo, Rebecca. Rebecca, I know we're at 11:58. I hand it to you.
Okay, fair enough. Janine, let me ask you one question as we close off. What's the biggest fear or reservation you have about stepping into a voiceover business?
The biggest fear is what we talked about at the ladder, which is not being able to manage the editing myself, realizing that with my son, when I first started in the business, I was working with my son. He was right next to me in the I don't know, I called it the tech room or whatever. But now he's off doing his own thing and can do some things, but not all. I know that that's an area I need to hone. Seeking work is not as much of an issue, and now I sort of know which direction to take, and that I need to have a coach. But the biggest thing, I'm telling you, I'm fearful of the of editing. I really am.
I think you should take that fear off your plate, Janine. Definitely.
You think?
Yeah, because it's not that hard once you get the hang of it. I know it seems really daunting at the beginning, but going and getting coaching on that will really make your life easier. Just because at least you'll know what it should sound like.
Right. Yes. Exactly. And
Hmm.
like you said, and what I'm handing off to someone,
Yes.
you've done as much as you can. And then it's like, here, take this and make it sound great.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other question. Usually when you're submitting something to a client, they have certain specs that they
Hmm.
want it to be submitted in, right?
Hmm.
Is there a particular, I don't know, expertise that you have, or did you just like, you know what, I only send you blank, blank, you know?
Usually I tell them that I send them a WAV file, which is
Mhm.
a .wav. So you've
Uh-huh.
probably come across that many times.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on a PC, so I don't send AIF files. That for me, I can't do, right? It's
Ah,
not,
okay.
that's an automatic extension for a Mac.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so I don't really have that, but WAV is universal. So everyone is fine with WAV. It's not a
Okay.
big deal.
All right.
Often they'll ask you if they want a 48K
Yep.
kilohertz or 44.1 kilohertz.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, and I usually do 48 because that's the highest quality, and they can downgrade it from there if they want. But some people will ask me for the 44.1, and if that's fine, if that's what they want, then that's what I give them. But
Right.
usually, it's at a little bit lower than the high rate. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm not a tech person per
That's
se when
okay.
this is coming, but okay, so George will probably give you a way better explanation of this. But you don't want your loudness to be peaking. You don't want it to be uh
Peaking.
not,
I get
yeah,
that.
peaking as in like jagged, as in sounding bad, right? Because if
Right.
it gets too loud, it starts to get jagged. The audio starts to get weird,
I
right?
follow you. Yes.
Yeah. So when people are processing your audio into whatever project they're putting it into, they need what's called headroom. They need a bit of space to work,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
So you want to make sure that your peak is no higher than -3 dB.
Mm,
It could be lower. They might want lower. But if it's -3 rather than all the way at 0, then they have some room to
room
work.
to work.
Yeah.
Exactly. If they need to lift you, if they need
They
to,
can
yeah,
process it however they want to
got
process
it.
it. You just want to give them the raw file as much as you can. I mean, yeah, get rid of clicks of your mouth and get rid of,
Yes.
really loud breaths, or
That's right.
entirely get rid of breaths if they
Yeah.
don't want them there. That happens all the time too.
Yes.
Or get rid of mistakes, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff, right? You might want to go through what's called a de-esser if
Mm.
your S's are particularly
S-
powerful
mhm.
or sibilant,
Yes.
then you might want to go through that. Other than that, really, they'll tell you if they want processing.
Okay. Got it. I got it. And so you got it.
Just give them a clean file, a clean WAV file at
Mhm.
the highest quality that they ask for, and you're good.
Oh my God. This is
Janine, I'll say one thing to bring you comfort. I did not know
sorry.
anything about StreamYard 10 weeks
Yeah.
ago. And
Wow.
now I'm like in here
Oh
toggling
my
and taking
gosh.
myself backstage and doing the thing. You can learn new things and you
Oh
I
can
yeah,
know.
also
I
teach
didn't
yourself.
start off knowing Audition. That was
Wow.
not. No, you got to learn it as you
Yeah.
go. That's.
Yeah.
But
So
coaches can help a lot.
Thank
I
you. And
know
I
I
will
know it's
pursue.
overwhelming, yeah.
I will definitely pursue them. This is fabulous.
I'm
Sorry,
glad.
Rebecca.
Not at all, not at all. Jodi, we'll leave you with one final question.
Mhm.
What's one thing we should have asked you but didn't?
Mm.
Oh, that's a good question because you
Yeah.
asked a lot.
I know.
I really can't think of anything at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, if there's anything else that you need, Janine, you're welcome to reach out an email, or
No,
we can
right?
get on another Zoom. I'm happy to talk with you again.
That's awesome. This is
Yeah,
thank
That's
you. Yeah,
awesome.
I'll give the heart too. I always mess it up, but
thank you.
yeah.
Jodi,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much for generously giving of your time and talents and all the things you know. If there was one thing I wish entrepreneurs would embrace more, it's the power of collaboration over competition.
I
And
Mm,
the fact that you are here today to help another voiceover artist with their business with absolutely no agenda or nothing really in it for yourself other than good vibes, that comes back tenfold. You never know what we could be collaborating on in the future. So
That's
that's
right.
true. Actually, there's one more thing that I could mention. And you
I'm into
probably
it.
already know this, Janine, because you were talking about business.
Yes.
This is a business.
Thank you.
Okay? Like a lot of people are, they're into this because they love acting. And I am all for that. Be
Yeah.
an actor. Have fun.
Yeah.
This is fun. It really is. But it's also a business. So
Mhm.
you have to make sure that you're not putting out more than you're getting in. And you need to make sure that you have an invoicing program, that you have some way to keep track of your clients. I personally use Zoho Books,
Mm.
but Zoho has a whole suite of stuff, but there are a bunch of them like Quicken and QuickBooks and all of
Yeah.
these other, right? Just make sure you have an invoicing system and that you're keeping track of invoicing. I invoice when I send the audio. I do not wait. I
Ah,
do not wait. I don't wait till the end of the week. I don't wait till the end of the month. I send it to them the minute that they get their audio.
you are brilliant because I remember the few clients that I had, it was sort of this, so do I wait until they, provide comment or do I wait? But I hear you because you've put the work in.
Mm-hmm.
You've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And they know that they can come back to me if they have changes. I've made that
Yes.
very clear. I do offer a change or two depending on, what the size of the project is in within 10 days. I have a very specific revisions policy and I have a professional services guarantee that I
Yes.
send when I'm talking with someone. So right off the bat, they know that I'm a professional, that I know what I'm doing, that I've done this
Yes.
before,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that
Yes.
it's going to be fine.
And I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to
Yes,
just leave. I'm not going to abandon you.
exactly.
But at the same
Yes.
time, there's a time limit that you've set,
Yes.
a timeline of it. But I need to know by. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is a
People,
business. Yeah.
yeah, people want to buy into systems.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to buy into just fly by your pants. They
Yes.
need to know that you have a process and a system because it brings them peace of mind,
Yes.
and to know that you're working with a professional that has policies and procedures in place, that there's a timeline, standards, and practices, that you're legit just
Yeah.
buys so much peace of mind that
Yes.
you can get to the repeat level that Jodi's at
Yes.
because people know what they're getting into rather than having to wonder what's coming next.
Yeah. That
I
also
love
means
that.
that you can charge what you're worth.
Yeah.
And here's another
Won't
thing.
that
I'm
be
sorry,
nice?
I'm delaying this as
Oh
well.
my God! Keep
But-
on going, girl.
okay.
Keep on going.
Okay, so
Sing it,
one more
sister.
thing. One more thing. If you're going to give your voice away for free, do it for something that you really believe in. So use it for
Wow.
charity, use it for something that you really, really feel strongly about. But otherwise, do not give it away for free. There are industry standards. There is a rate guide called the GVAA rate guide. Look it up. And it gives you all of the industry standard rates for non-union work in various different fields. And it's
Right.
usually broken down. This is licensing. It's not outright buying. This is licensing.
Yes.
They're using your voice for a certain amount of time for a certain medium, and that's where it should only be heard. And generally, the more money they're making from your voice, the more money you make.
That's right. You're and I would have to come back to you because I do have several. You mentioned non-union, and I
Mhm.
know that there are some people who only work or who hire union
Mhm.
workers, but you are specifically a non-union or
I actually am what's called financial core. And so what that means is that I am only paying for the core of what SAG-AFTRA requires their members to pay. So I'm kind of a non-voting member. I'm not really
Yes.
allowed to vote. I'm not allowed to participate in any of their initiatives. I can't, if I'm in LA, I can't go to any of their workshops or anything like that. But I'm in like the Toronto area and I don't need their health care. And,
Yes.
for me,
I get it.
yeah. So like for me, it makes sense to be financial core because really, I have been asked very, very, very rarely to be in a union production. Every once in a while, it does happen, and I am totally happy to be there. I pay my dues. I have a membership number.
Yeah.
It's all above board, but the majority of my work is non-union. I just make sure that I am paid enough that I can pay my own medical, that I can pay my
Yes.
own stuff, right?
Got it.
So, yeah, you got to pay attention to that. You have to make
Thank
sure
you.
you're being paid enough for all of the extras that you, as a business person and someone who doesn't have a union behind you, has to pay.
Has to pay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you're a member of SAG.
Yeah, I
So,
am.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Because
I mean, I technically can't say that.
no, okay. So we can take that out because I was
Yeah.
wondering if there are other memberships that I should have. But I'll send an email to you just asking
Sure.
that
Yeah.
question maybe or something. Yeah.
SAG-AFTRA is a one thing now. They're
Ah,
together, so
okay.
it's been that way for a while now.
Okay.
But yeah, they're together now. So so I'm Financial Core, and I went Financial Core I think in 2017, I
Okay.
believe. So I can do union jobs, I can do non-union jobs. I still pay my dues to the union. But like I said, there are things I can't do, and I can't say on my website, for instance, that I'm union.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Oh God, Jodi. Thank you. Thank you abundantly.
You're
You
very
have
welcome.
it just helped me, sort of think about also my next steps, things
Hmm.
that I need to do before I put my sword in the sand or my sign on the wall, if
Hmm.
you will.
Sure.
There's more work to do. So thank you.
My absolute pleasure. Yeah.
You're
Good luck
fabulous.
with everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be checking you out, the clubhouse and everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing. Jodi, I really am into you.
Me
So
too.
Thank you.
big wink. Big wink for
Big
sure.
win. Yeah.
And if there's anything at all I could ever do for you to return the favor, do not hesitate to ask. And generally, what that looks like for people is if they have a client or their own project where they can't quite figure out what the positioning is. So they really
Mhm.
need to articulate, who are my people? What do they need? Who am I? What am I delivering? And why am I special,
Mm.
different than the one? So if
Okay.
there's any point I can do that for you for a project you're working on, an initiative, or a client, I am at your service.
I will definitely let you know. That's a good thing to have a resource for.
Wow, absolutely.
Yeah,
It can make a real difference in just like 90 minutes of getting
totally.
everyone playing from the same sheet of music. So please take me up on that offer anytime.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much. All right, friends, here
Oh,
at 100 TV, I am the sole scratchy voice amongst two cherubic angels. And
oh wow.
I swallowed SOS next to y'all who
Yes.
are just like honey on the vine. So
No, you're great. This has
I
been
peer-to-peer support is where it's at, and I
it
thank
is.
you for
Hmm.
all of your good energy,
Thank
folks.
you. Thank
Happy
you.
to.
My pleasure. Oh my God, that was so fun. I learned a ton about the business of voiceovers. I learned about Jodi. I learned a little bit more about Janine, and I think that this was a very cool collaboration. Collaboration over competition. I encourage anyone in business to put down the defenses of more pie for you means less pie for me. Let's just make more pie. It's better for everybody. Join us next time for episode 10, Sing Out Your Services, where we'll figure out exactly what Janine has for sale. Hey everybody, have you ever wished you could get the Business in the Raw treatment for you, your brand, and your entrepreneurial journey? Good news. Well, now you can. Visit us at businessintheraw.tv to learn more about the Business in the Raw Home Edition, available now. The transcript picks that up and we figure it out. But other than
I
that,
want
we're
to
just
shout
gonna
bagel just cuz.
I know exactly. Exactly.
let's hear it.
Bagel.
Bagel.
Oh, sorry. You're muted, Rebecca. Go ahead. Yeah.
Right, sorry, because I was backstage.
Yeah.
Bagel,
Okay.
bagel, I was backstage.